The FDA just approved something that on the surface feels like innovation, but when you really look at it, it tells a much bigger story. And it tells the story about what's happening in men's health right now. It's an erectile dysfunction medication, but it's not in a pill. It's a breath strip. It dissolves on your tongue. It works quickly. There's no water, no bottle, no visible medication. And it's designed to be completely discreet. And when I saw this, I had two thoughts simultaneously at the same time. Of course, medicine is going to move in this direction, right? Because we're always trying to make treatments easier, faster, more accessible. But the second thought is one that I could not put out of my mind. This is the thought, is that when medicine starts redesigning treatment to be more discreet, it's usually because the condition is becoming far more common, much more common than we're openly talking about. And that leads to a much more important question. The question is, why is erectile dysfunction rising so quickly in younger men? This video is brought to you by my HarperCollins published book, Mind Over Explicit Matter. If you're ready to quit porn and reclaim your life mentally and physically, go over to drtrishleigh.com/book. We're not just talking about men in their 50s and 60s anymore. We're talking about men in their 20s and 30s who on paper are completely healthy. And before we even begin to answer that, there's something else we need to consider and understand first, because this is where people can go off track. Are you ready for it? The brain is adaptive above everything else. It is constantly learning patterns, and whatever repeatedly produces a result becomes the pathway the brain expects to follow. So, if arousal consistently happens in a certain way, under certain conditions, or after a certain trigger, the brain wires that in as the expected route, and over time, that becomes automatic. Now, this is where I want to be really, really clear, because people tend to polarize this conversation. Medication is not the enemy. Of course, it can absolutely support blood flow and function and help the body respond in the moment. It's very good at that. But if arousal repeatedly follows a pharmaceutical trigger, the brain can start to associate arousal with that trigger and only that trigger. Not because anything is broken inherently, but because the brain is doing exactly what it's designed to do, which is to learn the pattern and then follow it. And if the underlying nervous system is dysregulated, not functioning with healthy arousal, then the medication can help the body show up, but it doesn't necessarily retrain the brain to access that arousal, that state on its own. Okay, so let us zoom out for a minute. When you zoom out, you begin to realize we might be asking the wrong question here entirely, because right now the conversation is focused on things like, how do we make ED medication more discreet? How do we make ED medication work faster, easier? Something you don't have to think about or explain, right? More discreet. And that's fine on the surface, but it's also kind of a distraction if you think about it, because the real question isn't how to make ED medication more discreet. The real question is, why are so many younger men suddenly needing it? Why are men with normal labs, normal physiology, nothing obviously wrong, finding that arousal is inconsistent, unreliable, or dependent on very specific conditions? When you look closely at that pattern, something important shows up if you're willing to look at it. Arousal isn't just physical, it's brain driven. It's a state that your brain decides upon. It's regulated by dopamine, reward pathways, novelty, attention, and whether the nervous system feels safe enough to stay present. And the brain is always learning where reward lives. So if those pathways are repeatedly trained in high stimulation, high novelty environments, read the screen, where dopamine is fast, intense, and constantly changing, like in explicit matter, the brain adapts to expect the level of input. And then you show up in real life intimacy, which is slower, more connected, more relational. Now we have a mismatch in the arousal department. Not because something is wrong with the body, but because the brain has been trained to respond to something else entirely. And this is where I think we're missing the bigger picture as a culture and as individuals. We are getting better and better at treating the symptom while completely ignoring what trained the system in the first place. That's why I'm here. We're creating more discreet medications, faster delivery systems, easier access. But we're not asking what kind of environment, what kind of digital environment specifically, is shaping a nervous system that depends now on these interventions. That, my friend, is the conversation that actually matters, because the system isn't failing, it's adapting. Now, of course, I want to bring us to the part of the conversation that's actually empowering too, because the same brain that learned that pattern of high stimulation can unlearn it. Dopamine systems can re-regulate. Reward pathways can recalibrate. And the nervous system, it can relearn how to be present, connected, and responsive in real life intimacy. But that doesn't happen by addressing the body. It happens by retraining the brain and giving it a different set of experiences to wire around. So when you see something like an ED breath strip, yes, it's innovative. And yes, it may help you in the moment, but it should also make you pause and ask a deeper question. If intimacy requires a strip that dissolves on my tongue, what trained the brain to need it in the first place? Because medication can support the body, but rewiring the brain is the way to restore the system. The brain is neuroplastic, which means inherently the pattern that's causing the arousal dysfunction can change when it's trained to. Okay, I hope this helps you understand that innovation can be helpful, but regulation is the solution to this issue. So, as I always say, you have to regulate first. Please go over to drtrishleigh.com, check out my program by the same name, Regulate First, where I use top-tier technology to analyze your brain performance pattern and see if it's stuck in the pattern that is associated with erectile dysfunction. I've seen it thousands of times. Then I can make a customized plan for you to reverse the effects and to help you get your brain back on track. So please go to drtrishleigh.com, and as always, control your brain or it will control you. I'll see you next time.